George Washington was a man of many virtues, but one that stood out was his generosity. He believed that helping the poor and needy was his duty as a Christian and a gentleman. He also cared deeply for his family and friends, and often supported them financially or emotionally. One example of his charitable spirit was when he was serving as the Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. He wrote to his cousin Lund Washington, who was managing his plantation at Mount Vernon, and instructed him to keep up the hospitality of the house for the poor. He also authorized him to give away up to £50 a year in charity, even though he himself had refused to take a salary for his military service. Another example was when he was returning to Mount Vernon after his presidency in 1797. He spent over £80 in Pennsylvania currency for his expenses from Philadelphia to his home, which included giving money to servants and charity along the way. He also donated money to the Alexandria Poor Relief Committee, which helped widows, the sick, and others in need. Washington also supported various causes that promoted education, religion, and public welfare. He gave money to academies, churches, and orphanages. He also contributed to subscriptions that funded schools, publications, and fire victim relief. He was especially interested in educating young people, especially his own family members. One of his step-grandsons, George Washington Parke Custis, went to study at Princeton University in 1796. Washington wrote him several letters with fatherly advice on how to live a virtuous life. He encouraged him to be diligent, honest, humble, and charitable. He wrote, "Let your heart feel for the afflictions and distresses of everyone, and let your hand give in proportion to your purse, remembering always the estimation of the widow's mite, but that it is not every one who asketh that deserveth charity. All, however, are worthy of the inquiry, or the deserving may suffer." Washington's charity and kindness were not only limited to humans. He also loved animals and treated them with respect. He had many dogs, horses, and other pets at Mount Vernon. He even had a parrot named Polly that belonged to his wife Martha. He once wrote to his nephew Bushrod Washington, "I am glad you have taken Polly under your protection, as she is a great favorite of Mrs. Washington's." Washington died on December 14, 1799, at the age of 67. He left behind a legacy of courage, leadership, and generosity that inspired generations of Americans. He also left behind a will that reflected his charitable nature. He freed all his slaves upon his wife's death and provided for their education and welfare. He also left money and land to various relatives, friends, and institutions. He wrote, "I hope I shall always possess firmness and virtue enough to maintain what I consider the most enviable of all titles, the character of an honest man."